we are here one more time, welcoming dear friend Jean Wallet back. Uh, Jean was on our show months ago, and she shared a whole lot about what she's been doing, her miracles of hope, and new promotion she got, what has been going on in her world. And Jean has accepted come back today to give us an update, and we are so excited. She is really beaming with all kinds of blessings. And so, Jean, Happy New Year, and welcome to this Healthy Beginnings World of Women podcast. So, take it away, Jean.
Yeah, just a quick update. I had an amazing time in Africa. I went to Africa, like I said, I was going to go there, the situation and what people are facing over there. It was beautiful. I mean, just going home after such a long time. And it was my first trip back after actually losing my leg. So it was very interesting to say. I arrived at a very warm reception. The documentary will be out soon, so if anybody definitely wants to see that, and I'll get in touch with Sister Zita, so we can also post it on World of Women. You know, just to also encourage other women to say, and men, pretty much everybody to say, you know, you can go from being so low to be there, changing your mindset. But yes, so now, when I went, like I said, I was planning to have an audience with the president. Unfortunately, his schedule did not align, as I was only there for 2 weeks. But I did speak with one of his people, and they put me in touch with the minister. So I had the pleasure of meeting with the ministers of community development and social services. We did have talks. Again, those videos will be out shortly. And I managed to really kind of find out the challenges that people are having in Africa, especially in Zambia, because that's where I was. I mean, I will definitely give you an example of one of the things. When I went to the University Teaching Hospital, which is one of the main hospitals in Zambia, I was actually very shocked to find out that we only have 4 machines that make prosthetics in Zambia, 2 of which I managed to sell myself. And they have a wonderful staff there. But the challenge was that they have the machines, but they don't have the materials to make them. So, which is, you know, very sad. And what really touched me also so much was when I went to part of the documentary there with, I met with the chief surgeon there, Dr. Malenga. As we were filming, there was a gentleman there, and his name is Emmanuel. This gentleman was trying on his prosthetic leg on one side, 30 years old, trying on his first prosthetic leg as a gentleman. He lost his legs at 7 years old, trying his prosthetics at 30. Living your whole life as a teenager, as an early adult, it was very sad. It was very sad to see, and you know, because he was so used to walking with crutches, which was also very, very sad because he had 2 mismatched crutches. One was wooden, one was steel, and they didn't even have the stops at the bottom. And, you know, being disabled myself, and I've used crutches because you know, in the stages of what I went through, I've used wheelchair. I've been in a wheelchair. I have been used crutches. I currently use a cane. So for him being so used to the crutches, when he was walking on the leg, I saw this look on his face like, not worth it. And I actually had to go to him and I said, I know right now fortunately, we have medication here to to deal with things like phantom pains, which occur with limb loss, but the medication there is not there and accessible to the people that need it. The government is definitely looking into that, and they are trying, but it was very touching. It was very touching, but I think after I spoke with him, we spoke, and he talked about challenges of getting a job. Even just to come to that one appointment took him literally 2 months to save the money. So, yeah, so that was one of the stories that I met, that of the gentleman and the people that I met there. I met some children that were going there. And, I mean, just the waiting list is very sad. We definitely need people to look further into what's happening and to help people, be a bridge to somebody, like I always say, because there are people, definitely, I've seen it, that need help, that need us to care just a little bit more than what we're doing right now. So it was.
Jane, thanks for sharing. And you know what? I know that each time you come to our show, is you really, you know what, you brighten our show by your spirit of resilience, spirit of joy and happiness, even in the midst, challenges. And nobody in this whole world, is living without one challenge or the other. Here in the United States, elsewhere in the world, people are dealing with challenges. And I see the hope and the joy you bring to people, even as you deal with your own individual challenge. And you also have taken up, I mean, you shared with us, there when you went to Zambia, what transpired. And can you take us back a little bit, just for people that are just listening to you for the first time? Take us back to how this whole thing started and the position you got. I mean, because they heard you went to Zambia, but they didn't know under what capacity. So if you can really take us back to that, I'll appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. I would try and shorten it because I know
shorten it. Yeah.
I was diagnosed with cancer in 2003. I went through the whole chemo. I was in the hospital for 10 months. I was in remission. They said I couldn't have kids, had twins, very blessed. They're turning 18 soon, graduating, thank you, Lord. And after that, I sent them to Africa, and I ended up getting sick again. So I had a second cancer, which I stayed in the hospital for almost a year. I went back to see my children, and on my way back, I had an infection and lost my fingers on my right side and my legs. So in that moment, for a while, I was depressed. I went through a lot of mixed emotions, but I said to myself, I'm alive, I still have breath, so I have a purpose here. What am I going to do? So I set up. I didn't change locations. I didn't go to Italy or just saying some of the places I'd love to go, but no. The same place where I was healing through all the things I went through is the same place. I just, I sat down and I prayed to the Lord and I said, you know what, help me find my purpose. And I just started jotting down, investigating, said, how can I help people? And that's how I founded Miracles of Hope, which is a nonprofit. And then in that midst also, because I'm very passionate about limb loss, they were looking for ambassadors for the Amputee Coalition. And after a lot of people applied, and so I was chosen to be in the Northeast region. So very proud of that. I recently just came back from New Orleans to go and meet the rest of the regional ambassadors for the different areas. It was absolutely amazing. Look forward to all of us meeting again at the national conference in Florida. But that's how I started my journey. And, for me, going on to this trip, they always say charity begins at home. So I had to go home to visit my parents, and in the same token, to see the challenges so I could come back here and see where we can help, And I really want to start that, I want to give everybody a challenge, Sometimes when you see somebody, go up to them and say, how can I help? I watched a movie and there was a certain doctor and he changed the whole hospital and told his staff, have the mindset. When you say something and you have the mindset, the miracles and the power that will come out of what you're doing will amaze you in yourself. If you just match those two things, because a lot of people these days, they say, but it doesn't match their mindset. So, say something and mean it. You see something, ask them, how can I help? How can I help could change somebody's life? Just those words, how can I help? So I challenge everybody watching this. Don't give a blind eye to somebody suffering, because you never know when you might need somebody and somebody might ask you, how can they help? So why do we start that change? Let's pay it forward. Let's pay it forward. Let's start by asking somebody. And I will start right now. Sister Zita, how can I help?
Yeah, and that's a wonderful question that you asked. And you know what? You're already helping. For coming to our podcast and, volunteering your information. It is not easy for someone who has been, with their 2 feet, like doing what a normal, regular person would do. The people who call regular would do. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yes.
And at some point, you got some of your body parts lost.
Yes.
And even without thinking about it, it just happened.
Yes.
But you did not stop there. You just said, you know what? This is not going to stop me. I still have all the visions, all the talents God has given me. I still carry them in my heart. And I still have my heart. Therefore, I'm going to forge ahead. And by the grace of God, I am going to do it. And here you are. You are doing it. You're showing exemplary life. You're even living, if I may say it, more fulfilled life right now.
Thank you so much.
Because you have these kids growing, at your watch.
Yes.
Now you have this opportunity that you're using to let other women and men know that this is not the end of life. Yes, anything can happen to any of us. Nobody plans for, any of this. But life happens. So when life happens, what do you do? When life throws lemon to you, what do you do with it? You have shown us that we better prepare a nice, tasty lemonade with it.
Yeah.
And really, you are a challenge to the women folk. You are internationally, you are a challenge to all of us. Because look at what you're doing now. So I'm glad you're already spreading the good news that women are more empowered in every. In fact, when we think they're less, in their whole life, that they have hit the rock bottom and all that, just to say that no, that's not the end of it. Women can really bounce back in a way that you would never have fathomed. And that is what has happened to you, Jean. And I am so glad you're doing what I would have asked you to do. You're already doing it.
Thank you.
You're spreading the news now. Jean, you also have a nonprofit that you're intending to expand with providing services. Can you just mention a little bit about that? Because that's another thing that you're doing that I'm really very proud of.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I have a nonprofit called Miracles of Hope. Miracles of Hope, I came up with Miracles of Hope because I looked at the challenges that I went through myself. So it's literally to help people, cancer survivors, to attain a better way to blend in the community, to survive, to to develop greater independence. So I said, how can I help? Let me help because I understand how to feel. So Miracles of Hope was founded to help people like me that have disabilities and also that are cancer survivors, just to attain greater independence. So when I opened that, I'm now a 501c3, so fully tax exempt. So we're trying to. When I went to Zambia, um, we were in talks with the ministry and so forth. So I will be opening up Miracles of Hope in Zambia. So that will be in effect shortly. So that way, we're just trying to find a bridge to help. Maybe we can get, wheelchairs, canes, things like that. Because some people have things at home and stuff like that. We're just trying to find a way of bridging the gap with what we have here that we can help over there, right? Without obviously making sure that everybody here is also taken care of. So spreading the love, should I say?
Yeah, exactly. That's a win-win situation.
Or should we say spreading the mobility?
Right. That's a good one. Spreading the mobility. Mm-hmm. Because when people get mobile, life gets easier, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and you're doing that here in the United States as well as in Zambia. And that's similar to what Zita's Healthy Beginnings is doing. Our nonprofit organization is taking care of women and children here in the United States. And every one of us, maybe not everybody, is aware of what the mortality is as far as women and children in the United States, and it's so sad to talk about. I remember one of the prominent women I talked a few weeks ago from this country. She said to me, "Oh my God, I have no clue that women and children are still dying in the United States." I'm like, really? She said, yes. I said, well, I don't doubt what you said because you hardly see it on any of the news. You don't see it. You don't find anybody talking about it. But here I am, Zita's Healthy Beginnings, telling the world that yes, women are still dying. Young kids are still dying, in case you do not know that. If you go to hospitals, you ask, they'll tell you. They don't want to talk about it, but it's sad because that is the reality. And when you look at what we have in this country, we send people to the moon and to use time to take care of our neighbor. We're talking about sharing that mobility, helping our neighbors to get access to the health care that is available in the United States, but it's not accessible. It's really a challenge. I am still struggling in so many ways, trying to even start getting the funding to train doulas, because I know these women, they really help us to reach these other women, mothers who are struggling with access to healthcare. So I'm still having a challenge doing that with education, with training, and then you think about other places in Nigeria or elsewhere in Africa, places like South Sudan, Angola. You name it, they all have those challenges, and we're trying to collaborate with the government to even let them know what is going on, so how they can help us help those women. It does not really take a whole lot when we come down, because you don't women know how to really save. They know how to use stuff. They know how to make and build a home. So why don't we help them with whatever we can, be it the walker for their kids, or be it a cane for whoever they have in the family, and encourage them, teach them how to use it, or give them simple education on how to take care of their babies, on how to position and breastfeed their babies. That's natural. That's very simple, but you find out that we're struggling with all of that, trying to get our way through. But guess what? We are making a way, and God is making a way where there is no way. So I am so excited for what you're doing, Jean, and
Thank you
so much more. I am just wondering if anybody has a question for you, a comment, please come on and ask Jean. She's not going to be here for too long.
Yeah.
So please
Jean, thank you again for coming on. And you said you're the documentary. Like, what's the documentary about, or what's the name of it, or anything like that?
When I went to Zambia, we did a documentary, just document at the hospital. Like I was saying, I said, we saw the machines and just the patients, the challenges that are going on over there, and just my trip going back home. I went to the hospital. I went to the ministry. Yeah, there's a lot of little bits in there that kind of, for people that haven't seen Zambia, this would be a great opportunity to see the great part and also the parts where we need help with. So it's Jean's trip back home. Jean's journey back home, sorry.
Journey back home. Thank you. And also,
thanks,
Jean, I remember you had another documentary from, what's the name of the nice lady that came to your house and did all of that?
Yeah. Joanne?
Yeah.
Yes, Joanne Harrow for the Pittsburgh Tribune.
Right. So so if anyone wants to check that out, please do. Jean, do you have the the link so people can look it up?
What I will do is I will definitely get that link to you. So when you're on next week, I will definitely have those on for you.
Okay, great.
You within the week.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Yeah, Jean has another interesting documentary that really tells a whole lot about her journey here in the United States and what she has really done, to bring hope. It's all about bringing hope. We have another podcast, Jean, which I would like you to come on at some point. It's called Project I Heard. And it's all about, I'm blessed to be the host. And it started by a nonprofit by Brian. And Brian is really a wonderful veteran who really gave a lot and nearly lost his own life, but God helped him. And now Brian is giving back, just like what you're doing. It's all about recognizing God's grace in our lives, because none of us can do it except through the grace of God. Recognizing that you're not the only one that God has blessed. And when God bless you, what do? You become a blessing to other people. And that you keep, you really share it, give it forward. And that's what Brian is doing with his Monday podcast that we are doing every Monday at 6:30 Central or 7:30 Eastern. So please consider, joining one of those. Yeah, I will also pass the information to Brian and see, when he can schedule you to come on, because this is about volunteering. This is about sharing blessings. This is about saying, thank you, God, and I'm giving it forward.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Any more questions for Jean before she hops off?
Sure. Just real quick, Jean, do you have some takeaway nuggets in terms of your vision and kind of what you're hoping to instill, kind of, things as a result of all the work you're doing, like what you're spurring and what comes from all your efforts? Anything to describe that?
I would say, me coming out for so long, I was in seclusion because I wasn't sure of how people will take me, because, you know, there's always that. I think we spoke about this, Kurt, last time about, you know, inclusion and how people look at people that are disabled. So I think for me, and for me sharing my story, and I've had a lot of people come in and say, you know what, I feel I can do it. But people just literally say, you know what, just by you telling your story, my life has changed. You know what I mean? You're putting light on the big people to help the small people. Because sometimes that's what you need, you know. And what I've learned is, when I was in Zambia at the hospital, I had met this wonderful young lady. She had lost, she was born with a not a limb. I mean, she didn't have limb loss. She was with a limb indifference. So they had put a prosthetic, but the prosthetic, I don't know how to explain it, but you will see it in the documentary. Her leg is like this, had stopped halfway. So the prosthetic was like here. So her leg kind of was like this, but the prosthetic, so the foot was going out and it was down. And, you know, just by talking, she just said, you know what, I feel beautiful. I felt, and nobody should ever feel ugly, because God created. God does not create ugly. People become ugly, you know. So I think, Kurt, the answer to your question would be, what has come out of all of this? I think that, I think even in the article that said one prosthetic leg at a time, I think that telling the story is changing people's mindset. And I think that's the beginning to healing. I think that's the beginning to forgiveness, because a lot of people that have gone through disability and have gone through hard times with anything have said things to themselves, done things to themselves. So forgiveness also comes from healing. So yeah, I think a lot has come from just telling your story heals both other people and yourself.
Excellent. All right. Thanks for sharing that. That's good stuff. Thanks for doing what you do.
Thanks, Kurt.
You're welcome.
That's right. I thank everybody, and like I said, tomorrow is another day. Please wake up, thank the Lord, because you know what? When you have breath, give somebody hope. Ask them, how can I help? You know, or just tell them to smile. Smile at them and they'll smile back. If they don't, smile harder.
I know.
If you try for a third time, maybe leave them alone and come back the next day, but never give up on anybody, because you wouldn't want them to give up on you.
Absolutely, Jean. Absolutely. That's really wonderful. And I like the bit of sharing your story, because you know it's through story sharing, and people asking questions, and the next thing you know, people ask you, should I do this? What will I do to inherit the kingdom of God? And then he says, this went out to sow, and it's like, oh my goodness, they're asking you, instead of saying right away the answer, and then you share it with stories. I think that there's a very important message in your story, because
Right.
guess what? Just like each one of us, our faces are different, and so is our story. Even people that come from one mother, they still have different stories. And the more we share our stories, the more people come to understand who we are. Because you can't really say who someone is by just looking at their faces. No, you cannot. Even if they look alike, even if they are twins, you still cannot, because each individual is unique. And why actually I do podcast, Word of Women podcast, and Zita's Health through Zita's Health Beginnings. I like to share my story. At some point, I say to myself, why am I repeating my story all the time? People keep asking me, share your story. But I know by sharing my story, people will know that I was just not born with, silver spoon. Then I was not even born in in a city. I was born in a little village. I was born in a place. I was born. My mom delivered me in our home. So people can understand what a woman went through to give birth. The circumstances surrounding my own birth. So when I'm talking to women about caring for your babies, that that I have someone who has been there, done that. And I know that maybe breastfeeding your baby is hard, but that it won't be harder than when you have your baby tied at your back and you're walking 30 miles to a hospital to secure health services for your baby. And stopping in between to breastfeed this baby, it won't be harder. I don't see anything that would be harder than that when I'm talking to women today in the United States, where you have all kinds of help, all kinds of breast pump, different kinds, and you have people like us who are actually ready to support them. So sharing my story, the essence of that is helping people to understand my own background and know that really, if we're serious about it, we can do anything, do everything. The scripture says it. We can do all things through Christ that strengthens us. So it's only when we depend on that strength that comes from God through Jesus Christ that we're able to accomplish everything. And Jean, you are a typical example. You are really a testimony that people will look at and say, yes, this is so true. And I am so really proud of you and proud of what you're doing. And I know that even by this time next year, you'll be having more development to share with us. So I hope you keep coming back.
Yes, thank you so much. And I hope maybe in a year or two, we'll open a branch of Miracles of Hope in Nigeria.
And that will really happen. I say amen to that. Yes, because we need to really keep mobilizing everybody, right? Absolutely. How did you put it? Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate this. Unfortunately, I have to leave, but I will see you next week. I'll definitely pop in. Thank you for the audience. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right.
Bye,
Have a good one. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah, so that was really powerful to reconnect again with Jean to share what she has been doing since the last time we have on our show. And like I always say, women, we are gifted. We are naturally wired to be resilient. We have a lot that we cannot even begin to experience or begin to share, because some of those things we do naturally. They just come to us instinctively, and we just perform. And we think that it's like part of life. Oh yeah, I can do that. Oh, I can do that. But some of these things, they are all gifts God has given to us that we have to use to enrich ourselves. And so I am talking to all of us, and for some of our audience who will be listening to our podcast, please feel free to connect with us to share what you have been doing. Each one of us has got a story to share. And men also, that I know that you guys are not here by chance. Women brought you to this world. So I need you guys also to come to us, share those gifts you have received from women and still receiving. Those services that we take for granted, that we don't talk about. Please come on to our podcast and share with us. And let's really learn from one another, support one another, and reach one another in the spirit of collaboration. So, Kat, I don't know if you have something else also to add to what we've been talking about this whole thing of, sharing. We are sharing our stories and sharing what we do for the sole reason of empowering other people.
So I guess, I'm thinking in terms of sharing a story, I'll share a story from today. Today, my wife Sue and I, we went to the offices of our school district, and we were there to discuss, some activities and behaviors of youth. And it got spurred by some activities, might say destructive decisions, some, unacceptable behavior and so forth from our middle schoolers. And so, but basically what I did is I took the opportunity to, show up, showing up available, so that when we met, it wasn't just to discuss something and to tell the administrators that, I'm here to, increase the expectations from them. I said, no, I felt it was a discussion of coordination to say, they and their jobs have a role in, how things go with our youth. And the thing that, as this is all happening, I think of the phrase. The phrase never became, it takes a school to raise a child. I never heard that phrase.
Wow.
I heard the phrase, it takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah, exactly.
So I said, with our faith community, with our service organizations, with this other civics, like from the village hall, whatever, from law enforcement, our Main Street community with our businesses, and then with all the fun things, sports, rec, and the entertainment opportunities, and just what everybody does. I said, the school district is a territory, and I said, let's look at all the youth within this, and let's look at all the experiences and all the players within this area that is the footprint we put on our school district map, and say, yeah, the school itself, the school buildings and all the experiences in there are definitely a very significant part of the experience, but it's not the whole thing. And how can we pull it all together, and as we're doing it, to be sensitive to the generational issue, to say that, we're talking about the youth. And I talked about how Optimist International is one of these service organizations that my wife and I belong to. We've got, many, many years of background with Optimist International. An Optimist is friend of youth, bringing out the best in kids. Every Optimist club, we say, is formed to serve the youth, the community, and ourselves. And I told this story about how this whole thing began. It all began many decades ago, where guys having a business lunch, would do this week, like time after time. There's this pattern: have lunch, do business stuff, build that rapport and that professional acumen, and maybe even do, some fun, playing cards or whatever. And so one business guy says, it's great we gather like this, but he asked if, if he could propose something, and if these guys would hear him out. And what he did is he had a newspaper article where there was, a boy who got himself in trouble, a juvenile delinquent, and he committed a crime and just really looked like, destructive decisions there. And what these guys did is they responded to their friend or their colleague, associate, however they want to look at them, and they said, yeah, let's, as a group, see what we can do to help this situation. And out of that became a story of friend of the delinquent boy. So again, what my point here is that, there's an opportunity to have conversation, to be aware of what's going on out there, but to not hesitate to consider a role at some point. It's all about right people, right place, right time. So we're always asking if we're the person that's going to do that. And, if you're looking at, that you have the capacity to do something, to be placed where needs are, and it's not the right timing. It may come at a better time for you, but I think there's a little bit of asking for that. Can people out there come in and give a little something? In volunteer work, they say, I'm guessing you, Zita, with Zita's Healthy Beginnings, the phrase of many hands make light work. Have you ever used that expression?
Yes.
Yeah. And so there is that welcome that as we're here doing the business of Zita's Healthy Beginnings, and we're, really looking at our role as an infants, baby's not born yet, and successful birthing and doulas, and that there's a financial implication in that. We really have to ask, like when we do these shows, are we making comments so that it makes it more relatable and draws people into a conversation around these shows, and maybe even putting links to other resources, and then reacting, to kind of get the upticks on our videos that, to kind of help us draw attention to these messages and stories. And are we sharing it? Are we finding the commitment to babies, women, children, families? As soon as we say families, we start to include men and husbands, stuff like that. Is this a realm of our priority? Is the institution of family, really where we want to put financial resources, and that everybody out there can be a part of our army, doing a little something, whether it's going to, the website, which I believe is zetahealthy.org. Is that right? Yeah, zetahealthy.org.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And right on there is, real quick, how to donate. And it's not us donating. Are we thinking that we can help our organization, Zita's Healthy Beginnings, to get that out there to more people? Because if everybody participates in sharing this out and saying, hey, what wonderful work that we're doing to commit the beginning of life, Zita's Healthy Beginnings, and to hear that there is a financial concern. Because if we don't have the funds and we have people that want to be doulas, but there's a financial barrier for the training, that's where we're at a stop. This just becomes all great talk, no action. So I guess I figured the experience I had today, feeling successful in the school district, and really getting with professionals, administrators, to say, how can we take this conversation and do something that's really going to shift the impact here and really come closer to our kids? I felt that there's a translation of that feeling I had, that we made progress. And I just really thought I'd take this opportunity to speak to it and really ask out there that might be catching this part of the show. Seriously, if we could ask, if you could do any little thing, every little bit helps. Many hands make light work. Back to you, Zita. Take it from there.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kat, for that sharing. That's what I mean, sharing stories and then putting it in a way that it works for a particular situation. And like Zita's Healthy Beginnings, I like what you said there, the beginnings of life. So, what are we really individually, family, communities, and in fact, as a nation, what are we doing to support the beginnings of life? What are we doing to support the beginnings of life? And that is what we are doing here at Zita's Healthy Beginnings. We care for the beginnings of life. And remember, when you talk about the beginnings of life, we also want to go back to caring for people as well who bring this life. Before you have a beginning, you're going to know how did that life come about. So, and that involves our young women. We do that in our families, on individual levels. We do that also through community. So, yes, as you listen to this podcast this evening, it is really an interesting one in the sense that we are listening to people share their stories, and we are also sharing our stories through this podcast. But we're asking each one of us, because this is something each one of us can do. How do you become part of the beginning of life of any child? Through supporting women, through supporting young women, through supporting families, through supporting the whole family, community. How are we doing that? And there are so many ways we can do that. You've mentioned them. You can do volunteer work, reach out to us, find out, okay, how can I be part of this wonderful work you're doing? How can I be a part of the beginning of a life for a baby? We will have that, definitely show you how. How can I really prepare doers who do this job, who really help to reach out when the need is great? How do we support them? There are so many ways we can achieve this. So my question is, how often do we think about, you know, supporting the beginnings of life? How often do we think about that? It is important, very critical, that we begin to have that mentality of thinking about life, how we can preserve it. And we all owe it to each other to just do that. Because it ends up being a win win situation. Nobody loses when we are trying to help one another. We can only grow better and be better people when we support one another. And that's what we're doing here. And so I am hopeful that as you listen to this podcast, our listeners there, our volunteers out there, our donors there, we are full of gratitude for what you guys are doing so far to support us. We ask those of us who are still thinking about it, please go to our website. It's www.zitahealthy.org. You also have my email address right there. You can also reach out to us through card or M. We are so grateful for what one of us is doing to build a healthy community, to build a healthy, and to build a healthy world, because together we can make this work. So thank you all for this evening's podcast. And I don't know if anyone has last comment before we can wrap it up for tonight.
I'll just throw, wow. This is another great wow podcast.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, it is. Thank you. Yeah, so I want us to always remember that this podcast is coming to us through World of Ability Podcast in connection with Transform You Network and Park. We are so thankful for the opportunity they give us every week to reach out to our audience with this wonderful information about how we can really build support families. And until next week, Emily, want something to say before do you have something to add?
Oh, I was just happy that Jean came out and her story is a very inspiring one.
Absolutely, yes. And that's, we, like she promised that whenever she gets us, the whole details, we'll definitely share it with people, because I believe that her story is inspirational, and the more people that we can get this information into their hands, the better, because people would know what other people are doing, regardless of their individual challenges, and that we cannot allow any challenge in life to stop us from what we've been called to be. That is from being a source of hope for ourselves as well as for other people. So yes, we will definitely appreciate sharing this information when Jean gets it to us, to out there, and to just encourage us and to really affirm Jean's work, because she is really an exemplary woman. All right. So until next week, Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, we're gonna be back here talking about more stuff, and we have someone who's gonna present talking about health and how to support women. And I hope that you all come back and to listen and share. Until next week, have a great one. Stay safe and stay blessed. Thank you. Have a good night.
Recording stopped.